God opens his mouth. This is not a metaphor. The Bhagavad Gita is explicit about this. Soldiers, kings, generals, all disappearing into the throat of Vishnu like asteroids getting sucked into a black hole. But this is not the most interesting thing in the Mahabharata. The most interesting thing happens earlier. Arjuna is the greatest warrior alive. He's standing at the edge of the biggest war of his generation, and his hands are shaking so badly that he can barely hold his bow. Now, this is not from fear. Arjuna is face to face with the problem that became one of the central questions of 20th century philosophy. And one of the philosophers who deeply and fully understood that problem joined the Nazi party in 1933. His name was Martin Heidegger. And once you look at Arjuna through his framework, the scene becomes one of the best, most precise descriptions of an existential crisis, the sort of breakdown people like us try to avoid all the time. Now, Arjuna is not afraid of death. He looks across and sees his cousins, his grandfather, his teachers, and in that instant, his mind does the thing that we all do when the situation becomes unbearable. It retreats into calculation, weighing the pros and cons. He's thinking about family, legacy, and what he stands to lose. Heidegger has a term for the noise Arjuna is drowning in. He calls it das Man, or the they. It's the accumulated weight of everybody else's expectations. It's loud enough to bury the only question that actually matters in a moment like this. What does my existence require of me right now in this irreplaceable life? Arjuna tries to reason his way out. He runs through arguments, he looks for the correct logic. And Heidegger's claim is very radical. He says logic chasing is the trap. It can't help you escape. Human reason can't show him the truth of his situation. It only tightens the knot in Arjun's mind. The more he thinks, the further he moves from clarity of action, the more he becomes confused. Now, Arjuna does not feel ordinary fear. What Arjuna feels is angst. The layers of his identity, prince, warrior, son, brother, etc., are breaking down, and there's nothing underneath to catch him. Now, most people can relate to this feeling in far less dramatic moments. I'm sure you've stayed up at night with this anxiety where you can't find a single reason for the anxiety, or this strange sensation that everything that you've built your identity around is not convincing. There's actually nothing wrong with that anxiety. In fact, Heidegger would say that's the one honest moment most people try to escape immediately. Now, Krishna's response to Arjuna's collapse is not comfort or some kind of strategy. It's revelation. He reveals himself. And what happens? Time stops. Every soldier on the field freezes mid-motion, and Arjuna is shown something ordinary human perception is not built to understand. Past, present, and future occurring in a single simultaneous instant in the Vishwarupa. For Heidegger, truth is disclosure, revelation, the moment reality stops hiding itself. Krishna does not give Arjuna new information. He reveals a reality that was already there. It was just hidden underneath Arjuna's calculations, fears, and identities. And in that light, Arjuna realizes something. He did not choose to be born a warrior in this family, in this era, or the exact day this particular war would begin. Heidegger describes this as facticity. We are thrown into existence, a specific body, a specific history, specific cultural circumstances, and we don't consent to any of it. Now let's go back to the Vishwarupa. The Vishwarupa is genuinely terrifying. Krishna's mouth opens. The soldiers begin pouring into it, not as though they're rushing towards a future death, but as though it has already happened. Then Krishna tells him bluntly, I am time. I am the destroyer of worlds. These men are already dead. Your arrow does not decide their fate. And at this point, the story moves beyond Heidegger's philosophy. Heidegger asks us to confront death, and in doing so, live more authentically within our finite lives. The Gita asks for something stranger. It suggests that the ego self Arjuna has spent his entire life defending, the prince, the warrior, the son, was never the whole truth of who he is. Beneath that identity is the Atman, inseparable from Brahman, which is the ground of all existence. Arjuna is not losing himself in this vision. He finally sees through the costume he mistook for his true self. The moment he sees this, not believing it intellectually, but actually seeing it, the trembling stops. Not because the war has become easier, because his relationship to the fear has fundamentally changed. And this is not the first time the Mahabharata has shown us this kind of collapse. In the same epic, when Draupadi is publicly humiliated over a game of dice, men like Bhishma and Drona, men regarded as wise and moral, they sit in complete silence. It's not that they're cruel, it's just that they're paralyzed, like Arjuna. The crushing weight of role, reputation, and what the court would think if they spoke up. Heidegger calls this fallenness, becoming so absorbed in the everyday world and its expectations that you can't transcend it to do the right thing, to commit to the right action. Arjuna is the only figure in this epic who's shown a way out of that exact trap. His path is not some kind of escape from anxiety. He stops asking what action will cost him and starts asking what is actually true. That is the real war inside the Bhagavad Gita, not Pandavas versus Kauravas. It's one man's illusions versus reality, and for once, reality wins. So the next time you find yourself frozen by what people think, by what you stand to lose, by the expectations you've inherited, just remember Arjuna. The real question is not what should I do, it's whose life am I living? And that's the strangest part of the whole story. Martin Heidegger spent his life teaching that we lose ourselves in the crowd, in convention, in what he called Das Man or the They. And yet he aligned himself with the Nazis, the biggest movement around conformity and political fascism. And that's the final lesson. Understanding authenticity is not the same thing as living authentically. Arjuna was transformed by what he saw. Heidegger perhaps was not.